The Overthinking in Relationships Fix: Toxic Thoughts That Can Destroy Your Relationship and How to Fix Them by Elliot Chase. Introduction. In 1975, a doctor named Edward Tronick decided to test how babies react when their world suddenly stops making sense. He called it the still face experiment. The setup was simple. He brought a mother and her 1-year-old baby into a room. At first, everything was normal. The mother played with the baby. She smiled, she cooed, and she pointed at things. The baby was happy. He giggled and kicked his feet. His world felt safe because his mother was responding to him. Then the doctor gave the mother a signal. The mother turned her head away for a second. When she turned back, her face was completely blank. She didn't smile, she didn't frown, she didn't speak. She just stared at the baby with a still face. She looked like a statue. The baby noticed the change in a heartbeat. He tried to get his mom back. He smiled at her. He pointed at a toy. He reached out his tiny hands to touch her face. When she didn't react, he started to get confused. He waved both arms. He made little grunting sounds. He was trying every trick he knew to get a reaction. When nothing worked, the baby broke down. He turned his head away. He began to cry. His body slumped. In just 2 minutes, he went from a happy, curious explorer to a stressed-out, crying mess. He felt abandoned, even though his mother was sitting right in front of him. This experiment is famous because it shows how much we need to feel seen by the people we love. Even as babies, we have an internal alarm system. When we don't get a response from our favorite person, that alarm starts screaming. We think, "Are you still there? Do you still love me? Am I safe?" As adults, we like to think we have grown out of that. We think we are too smart to act like a baby in a high chair. But the truth is, that alarm system never goes away. It just gets quieter and more complicated. Instead of crying and waving our arms, we check our phones for the 10th time. We stare at a text message and wonder why there is a period at the end of a sentence instead of an exclamation point. We lie awake at night wondering if the way our partner said goodnight sounded a little bit colder than usual. If you're reading this, your internal alarm might be stuck in the on position. You might feel like that baby, reaching out and getting nothing back but a still face from your relationship. You aren't crazy. You are just stuck in a loop that your brain built to keep you safe, but now that loop is making you miserable. The ghost in the room overthinking is like a ghost that lives in your living room. You can't see it, but you can feel it making the air cold. It follows you from the bedroom to the kitchen. It sits between you and your partner on the couch. When you struggle with overthinking, you aren't just living in the real world. You are living in a world of what-ifs. What if they are bored of me? What if they found someone better at work? What if the reason they didn't call is because they are thinking about breaking up? This is what I call the fog of fiction. It is a thick, gray cloud of thoughts that hides the truth. When the fog is thick, you can't see your partner for who they really are. You only see the monsters your brain is making up. The worst part is that overthinking feels like work. It's exhausting. You spend hours analyzing a 5-word text message like it's a secret code. You look for clues in the tone of their voice or the way they look at their phone. You think that if you just think about it hard enough, you can solve the problem before it hurts you. But there is no problem to solve. The mental gymnastics you are doing aren't protecting you. They are actually pulling you away from the person you love. While you are busy worrying about the future, you are missing the person who is sitting right next to you in the present. You feel like a paralyzed spectator. You are watching your relationship happen, but you don't feel like you are in control. You feel like a passenger in a car that might crash at any second. You are constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. You want to trust. You want to be happy. But your brain won't let you rest. It keeps telling you that if you stop worrying, you'll be caught off guard when things go wrong. When safety becomes a trap, I want you to know something right now. Your overthinking is not a personality flaw. You weren't born broken. For most people, overthinking is a survival mechanism that has gone haywire. At some point in your life, maybe when you were a child, or maybe in a past relationship that ended badly, your brain learned that the world wasn't always safe. It learned that people could leave or that love could be taken away. So your brain did something very smart. It started scanning for threats. It became a 24/7 security guard. It decided that it would rather be wrong and worried than surprised and hurt. The problem is that this security guard doesn't know when to take a break. It sees a threat in a quiet dinner. It sees a threat in a delayed reply to a message. It treats a small disagreement like a house fire. This leads to a cycle that is hard to break. You feel anxious, so you ask for reassurance. You ask, "Are we okay?" Or, "Are you mad at me?" Your partner says, yes, we're fine, but your brain doesn't believe them. You think they only said that because I asked, so you ask again, or you act out, or you pull away to see if they will chase you. Eventually, this constant need for certainty starts to wear the relationship down. Your partner feels like they are being tested all the time. They feel like they can't win. This creates the very distance you were afraid of in the first place. This is the reassurance trap, and it is one of the biggest reasons why good relationships fall apart. But it doesn't have to stay this way. The promise of the anchor point this book is your manual for turning off that alarm. It is a guide to help you step out of the fog of fiction and back into your real life. By the time you reach the last page, you will no longer be a paralyzed spectator. You will be a confident participant. What does that look like? It means being able to see your partner's bad mood and knowing it has nothing to do with you. It means sending a text and then putting your phone away without checking it every 30 seconds. It means having a disagreement without feeling like the relationship is over. It means trusting yourself enough to know that even if things do go wrong, you will be okay. We are going to use a system called the anchor point. In a storm, a boat stays safe because it is tied to something heavy and solid deep underwater. It doesn't matter how hard the wind blows or how high the waves get, the anchor holds it in place. You are going to learn how to build your own anchor points. These are practical, science-based tools that will keep you grounded when your thoughts start to spiral. We aren't just going to talk about thinking positive. That doesn't work when your heart is racing and your stomach is in knots. We are going to use biology, history, and psychology to rewire the way your brain handles love. You can trust this approach because it isn't based on guesses. We are going to look at the work of people like Mary Ainsworth, who spent her life studying how humans attach to one another. We are going to look at the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled the entire Roman Empire while keeping his mind calm and clear. These ideas have worked for thousands of years. They work because they respect how the human brain is built. They don't ask you to stop feeling, they just show you how to stop letting your feelings drive the car. Meet Sarah to help you see how these tools work in the real world. I want to tell you about Sarah. Sarah is 32 years old. She is a freelance graphic designer, which means she spends a lot of her day looking at tiny details. She notices when a color is one shade off. She notices when a line is a fraction of an inch crooked. In her job, this is a superpower. It makes her great at what she does. But in her relationship with Mark, this superpower is a curse. Sarah and Mark have been together for 3 years. Mark is a kind man. He works as a teacher, he loves his dog, and he tells Sarah he loves her every day. On paper, their relationship is great. But inside Sarah's head, it feels like they are always one step away from a breakup. One Tuesday afternoon, Sarah was working at her desk. She sent Mark a text. "Hey, thinking of you, want to grab tacos for dinner tonight?" Usually Mark replies with emojis and a joke. But this time, 10 minutes went by, then 30, then an hour. Sarah's brain started to hum. Is he in a meeting? Maybe. But he usually checks his phone. Did I say something wrong this morning? I didn't make the bed, maybe he's annoyed about that. Or maybe he's tired of me always picking the food. Finally, her phone buzzed. She grabbed it. Mark's reply? K, just one letter, no heart, no see you later. Just K. In that moment, the fog of fiction rolled in. To Sarah, that K wasn't just a letter. It was a sign. It was cold. It was short. It was angry. She spent the next 3 hours in a text analysis spiral. She looked back at their messages from last week to see if he was getting shorter with her. She looked at his Instagram to see if he had been active. She felt a physical weight in her chest. She couldn't focus on her design work. All she could think was, he's pulling away. I can feel it. Something is wrong. When Mark walked through the door that evening, he looked tired. He dropped his bag and headed for the kitchen. Sarah was sitting on the couch, her heart pounding. Hey, she said, her voice tight. Are you okay? Yeah, Mark said, opening the fridge. Just a long day. Sarah didn't believe him. Her brain told her he was hiding something. You seemed short earlier, on the phone, Mark sighed. I was in the middle of a parent-teacher meeting, Sarah. I just wanted to let you know I saw the message. But you just sent a K, she said. It felt weird. Mark turned around, and for the first time, he looked frustrated. It was just a text, Sarah. Why does everything have to be a big deal? Sarah felt a sting of shame. She wanted to stop, but she couldn't. She spent the rest of the night asking more questions, trying to get that feeling of safety back. By the time they went to bed, they weren't talking. Mark was frustrated, and Sarah was convinced that her overthinking was finally coming true. He was pulling away. The irony is that Mark wasn't pulling away until Sarah started the fight. Her fear of the problem actually created the problem. Sarah's story is the story of this book. We are going to follow her as she learns how to handle that K text without losing her mind. We are going to watch her learn how to build her internal fortress and how to stop being a victim of her own imagination. You might not be a graphic designer, and your partner might not send K texts, but I bet you know exactly how Sarah feels. You know that heavy feeling in your chest. You know the way the world seems to turn gray when you think your partner is unhappy with you. The map to your new life, the journey ahead of us, is broken down into steps that will help you move from doubt to clarity. We will start by looking at your brain. We'll learn why your amygdala, that tiny part of your brain that handles fear, is acting like a tyrant. We will meet Marcus Aurelius, who will teach us how to separate facts from opinions. You will learn that while you can't control what your partner does, you have total power over what you think about it. Next, we will look at your attachment style. With the help of Mary Ainsworth, you will find out why you feel that physical itch when you don't get validation. You'll learn that your need for closeness isn't needy, it's just how you are wired. But you'll also learn how to soothe that need yourself so you don't have to rely on your partner to do it for you. We will tackle the two poisons of relationships, mind reading and fortune telling. We will look at a famous moment in history, the Christmas truce of 1914, to see how narrative assumptions can lead to war and how dropping those assumptions can lead to peace. You will learn the 24-hour rule and the self-validation protocol. These are the tools that will help you stay calm when the silence feels too loud. You'll learn how to exist in the same room as your partner without needing them to perform happiness just so you can feel okay. Finally, we will look at how to build long-term trust. We'll look at the engineering of the Brooklyn Bridge to see how redundant strength can keep a relationship standing through any storm. This isn't just a book about fixing your thoughts. It is a book about reclaiming your life. It is about being able to sit at a dinner table and actually taste your food instead of worrying about the look on your partner's face. It is about sleeping soundly because you know that you are enough, regardless of what anyone else thinks. The fog of fiction is thick, but it isn't solid. You can walk right through it. The first step is simply realizing that you don't have to believe everything you think. Your brain is a storyteller, but you are the one who decides which stories are true. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Why does your brain search for? Sarah sits on her velvet sofa, the glow from her phone screen lighting up her face in the dark room. It is 9:14 p.m. She sent a long text to Mark 20 minutes ago. She told him about her stressful day, the way her boss critiqued her new graphic design project, and how much she was looking forward to seeing him on Friday. Mark's reply came 3 minutes ago. It was one letter. Sarah feels a sharp coldness move from her chest down to her fingertips. Her heart, which was beating normally just a moment ago, starts to thump against her ribs like a trapped bird. In an instant, the cozy silence of her apartment feels heavy and threatening. She stares at that single capital letter. To anyone else, it's just a keystroke. To Sarah, it feels like a door slamming shut. She begins the mental gymnastics. She scrolls back through their messages from the last 3 days. Was he shorter with her this morning? He didn't use an emoji when he said, "Good morning." She remembers he took an extra hour to call her back on Tuesday. She starts to build a story. The story says that Mark is tired of her. The story says her long text was too much, and now he thinks she is needy. The story ends with him leaving her. This is the text analysis spiral. In this moment, Sarah isn't just a woman looking at a phone. She is a person whose brain has shifted into a state of high alert. She is looking for a predator in the tall grass, even though she is sitting in a safe apartment in the middle of the city. This tiny moment, one letter on a screen, has triggered a biological system that is millions of years old. Sarah thinks she is just worried about her boyfriend. In reality, her brain is performing a survival routine that was designed to keep her ancestors from being eaten by lions. The problem is that there are no lions in her living room. There is only a man who might be tired, or busy, or just bad at texting. The almond-shaped guard dog. To understand why Sarah's brain does this, we have to look back at how humans are built. Deep inside your brain, there is a tiny part called the amygdala. It is shaped like an almond. For a long time, people didn't really know what this little piece of the brain did. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, scientists began to realize that this tiny spot was the control center for fear. When they studied how it worked, they found something amazing. The amygdala acts like a guard dog that never sleeps. Its only job is to watch for danger. It doesn't care if you are happy. It doesn't care if your relationship is romantic. It only cares that you stay alive. When Sarah sees that K, her amygdala doesn't see a letter. It sees a threat to the pack. Millions of years ago, being kicked out of the tribe meant you would probably die. You couldn't hunt or stay warm by yourself. Because of this, our brains became very sensitive to any sign that people might be unhappy with us. This is called the negativity bias. It is a fancy way of saying that our brains are hardwired to look for bad news. If you walk into a field and see 10 beautiful flowers and one coiled snake, your brain will not remember the flowers. It will only remember the snake. In a relationship, you might have 10 great days, but your brain will fixate on the one K text message. Most people believe that overthinking is a character flaw. They think they are crazy or weak or insecure. This is the first myth we have to bust. Overthinking is not a sign that something is wrong with your personality. It is a sign that your brain's guard dog is doing its job too well. It is trying to protect you from the pain of being left alone. The problem is that the guard dog can't tell the difference between a real snake and a piece of rope. Sarah's brain has seen a piece of rope, a short text message, and it is screaming "snake" at the top of its lungs. This creates what we call the fog of fiction. The fact is a single letter on a screen. The fiction is the massive, scary story Sarah is building about her relationship ending. The emperor on the edge of the world, long before scientists knew what an amygdala was, a man named Marcus Aurelius was struggling with these same feelings. He was the emperor of Rome nearly 2,000 years ago. He was the most powerful man in the world, but he spent much of his time living in a cold, muddy tent on the edge of the Roman Empire. He was surrounded by war. He was surrounded by people who wanted to take his throne. He lived in a constant state of uncertainty. If anyone had a reason to overthink, it was Marcus. He could have spent every night wondering if his generals liked him or if his people were plotting against him. Instead, he sat in his tent by candlelight and wrote notes to himself. These notes eventually became a book called Meditations. He wasn't writing for an audience. He was writing to keep his own mind from spiraling into the fog. Marcus realized something that Sarah hasn't learned yet. He wrote that the things we see are not good or bad on their own. Instead, it is our opinion of those things that causes us pain. He believed that if you could strip away the story you are telling yourself, the pain would disappear. Imagine Marcus sitting in his tent. A messenger arrives and says, "The enemy has crossed the river." The fact is that men have moved from one side of the water to the other. The fiction or opinion would be, "We are all going to die, and I am a failure as an emperor." Marcus trained himself to stay with the fact. He told himself that he had no control over what the enemy did. He only had control over his own mind. He called this the internal fortress. He believed that you could build a place inside your head where no outside event could hurt you unless you allowed it to. Sarah is currently standing outside her fortress. She has let the K text message climb over the walls and start a fire in the courtyard. She is reacting to her opinion of the text, not the text itself. Marcus Aurelius would tell Sarah that the text message is indifferent. It has no power to hurt her until she decides what it means. The cost of searching for ghosts when Sarah's brain starts searching for problems, it isn't just annoying. It is exhausting. Searching for ghosts takes a lot of energy. At 10:00 p.m., Sarah has checked Mark's Instagram to see if he's active. She sees that he liked a photo of a dog 5 minutes ago. Now her brain has more evidence. He has time to like a photo of a dog, but he only has time to send me one letter? The fog of fiction is getting thicker. She is now convinced that Mark is ignoring her on purpose. She starts to feel a sense of pre-grief. She is mourning the end of the relationship before it has even ended. This is the struggle of the paralyzed spectator. Sarah is watching her own life happen like a scary movie she can't turn off. She feels like she has to solve the mystery of the K to be safe. But the more she tries to solve it, the more clues her brain finds to prove that things are going wrong. This is where the negativity bias becomes a trap. Once your brain decides there is a problem, it will ignore everything that proves there isn't a problem. Sarah ignores the fact that Mark bought her favorite coffee yesterday. She ignores the fact that he told her he loved her this morning. Those are the flowers in the field. Her brain is only looking for the snake. The challenge is that our brains are not designed to make us happy. They are designed to make us survive. Happiness is a luxury that the amygdala doesn't care about. If you want to be happy and secure in a relationship, you have to learn how to talk back to your own biology. You have to learn how to tell the guard dog to sit down. Finding the anchor point, Sarah decides to try something different. She is tired of feeling like her chest is full of ice. She remembers a concept she read about, the anchor point. An anchor is something heavy and solid that keeps a boat from drifting away in a storm. In a relationship, an anchor point is a hard, objective fact that you can hold on to when the fog of fiction starts to roll in. Sarah takes a deep breath. She grabs a notepad from her side table. She decides to list the facts, only the things a camera could see. I sent a long text. Mark replied with K. Mark liked a photo of a dog. Then she lists the fiction, the stories she is telling herself. He is bored of me. He is mad about something I said. He is going to break up with me. When she looks at the two lists, she realizes something powerful. There is no line connecting the facts to the fiction. There is no proof that K means I am breaking up with you. It could just as easily mean I am in the middle of a movie, or I am about to fall asleep, or my hands are full. This is her first aha moment. She realizes that her pain isn't coming from Mark. It is coming from the story she wrote about Mark. This realization doesn't make the anxiety go away instantly, but it changes it. It gives her a tiny bit of space to breathe. She is starting to see that she doesn't have to believe every thought that pops into her head. Like Marcus Aurelius in his tent, she is beginning to realize that her opinion is the thing causing the trouble. The hope in the hardware there is a great deal of hope in knowing that your brain is just trying to protect you. If you think you are broken, you feel hopeless. But if you realize your brain is just overprotective, you can learn to manage it. You are not your overthinking. You are the person observing the overthinking. Sarah looks at her phone one last time. She has a strong urge to text him again. She wants to ask, "Are you mad? Or did I do something wrong?" This is her brain's way of trying to find certainty. It wants to solve the threat so the guard dog can go to sleep. But Sarah knows that if she asks for reassurance now, it will only be a temporary fix. It's like scratching an itch. It feels good for a second, but then it just itches more. Instead, she puts her phone in the kitchen. She decides to trust that if there is a real problem, it will still be there tomorrow when she is calm. She is choosing to stay in her internal fortress. As she lies in bed, the what if thoughts still swirl around. What if he's actually unhappy? What if I'm losing him? She doesn't try to fight the thoughts. She just labels them. That is a what if thought. That is the fog of fiction. She returns to her anchor point. The fact is, we have a date on Friday. Until he says otherwise, that is the reality. Sarah is moving from being a paralyzed spectator to a person who has a say in her own mental life. She is learning that the search for problems is a survival reflex, not a crystal ball. You might feel like Sarah tonight. You might be staring at a phone, or replaying a conversation in your head, or looking for clues that your partner is pulling away. It is important to know that you are not failing. You are simply operating on old software. Your brain is searching for problems because it wants you to be safe. But you can teach your brain that you are already safe. You can learn to see the K for what it is, a letter, not a death sentence. The path out of the fog starts with a single realization. You do not have to believe everything you think. You can build a fortress. You can find an anchor. And slowly, the lions in your living room will start to look like the shadows they truly are. Sarah closes her eyes. Her heart has slowed down. The K is still there on her phone in the other room, but it doesn't feel like a monster anymore. It just feels like a letter. She is learning to live with the uncertainty. And in that choice, she is finding her first taste of real power. Chapter 2, Attachment Theory, the Invisible. About 50% of the people you pass on the street every day are walking around with a hidden map tucked inside their hearts. They don't know it's there, but it decides almost everything they do in their relationships. It tells them when to move closer to someone and when to run away. It tells them if a silent room is a peaceful place or a sign that something is terribly wrong. If you feel like you are constantly overthinking every move your partner makes, you are likely part of the half of the population whose map is a little outdated. This map wasn't drawn by you. It was drawn for you before you could even walk or talk. It was created by the way the people who raised you responded when you cried, when you were hungry, or when you were scared. We used to think that babies just needed food and a clean diaper to grow up healthy. We were wrong. We found out that humans have a biological need for attachment that is just as strong as the need for air. When that need isn't met in a steady way, our brains develop a very specific kind of internal radar. This radar is designed to scan for any sign of being left alone. The room with the two chairs in the 1960s, a psychologist named Mary Ainsworth wanted to see this hidden map in action. She set up a simple experiment in a small room at Johns Hopkins University. The room had some toys on the floor and 2 chairs. It looked like a normal waiting room, but it was actually a laboratory for the human soul. She called her experiment the strange situation. The setup was simple. A mother and her 1-year-old baby would enter the room. A stranger would come in and talk to the mother. Then, the mother would leave the room, leaving the baby with the stranger. A few minutes later, the mother would come back. Mary wasn't interested in the toys or the stranger. She was watching one specific moment: what happened when the mother walked back through the door. Mary watched hundreds of these reunions through a one-way mirror. She saw 3 very different patterns of behavior. Some babies would cry when the mother left, but when she returned, they would go to her, get a hug, and then quickly go back to playing with the toys. Mary called these babies securely attached. Their maps told them that the world was safe and that their person would always come back. But then there were the others. Some babies would scream and cry when the mother left. When she returned, they would rush to her, but they couldn't be calmed down. They would kick or pull away even while they were clinging to her. They were angry and terrified at the same time. Their maps told them that love was unpredictable. They learned that they had to turn up the volume on their distress just to make sure they weren't forgotten. A third group of babies did something even more strange. When the mother left, they didn't seem to care. When she came back, they didn't look up from their toys. They ignored her completely. On the outside, they looked calm. But when researchers checked their heart rates, they found something shocking. Their hearts were racing just as fast as the babies who were screaming. They were just as stressed, but they had learned to hide it. Their maps told them that showing a need for love would only lead to rejection, so they shut down their emotions to protect themselves. Sarah's internal compass. Sarah sat on her couch, staring at the blue light of her phone. Mark had been home for an hour, but he was in the other room playing a video game. He hadn't said much since he walked through the door. Usually, they talked about their day while she made a salad and he decompressing. Tonight, there was only the sound of digital explosions from the TV. The fog of fiction started to roll in. Sarah's brain began to draw a map of the silence. He's bored with me, she thought. He's realized that I'm too much work. Maybe he met someone at the office who doesn't ask so many questions. She felt a physical itch in her chest. It was a restless, buzzing feeling that told her she had to do something right now to fix the silence. She stood up and walked into the living room. "Are you mad at me?" she asked. Mark didn't look away from the screen. "No, babe, just a long day. I just want to zone out for a bit." Sarah went back to the kitchen, but the itch didn't go away. In fact, it got worse. Her brain didn't believe him. It took his long day and translated it into, "I don't want to talk to you." This is the hallmark of the anxious preoccupied attachment style, the adult version of the baby who couldn't be calmed down. Because her early map told her that attention was something she had to fight for, she lived in a constant state of high alert. Sarah was beginning to realize that her overthinking wasn't a personality flaw. It was a survival strategy that was 20 years out of date. She was using a map of her childhood home to navigate her relationship with Mark. Every time Mark pulled away to have some space, Sarah's brain saw a mother leaving a room and never coming back. She wasn't reacting to Mark. She was reacting to the strange situation playing on a loop in her head. The science of the search. Why do we do this? Why does our brain choose to be miserable instead of just believing our partners? The answer lies in how our nervous systems are wired. Mary Ainsworth's research showed that for an infant, closeness equals life. A baby cannot survive on its own. If the person they depend on moves away, it triggers a literal life-or-death alarm in the brain. When you have an anxious attachment style, that alarm never quite turns off. Your brain becomes a master at hypervigilance. This means you are better than most people at picking up on tiny changes in tone, facial expressions, or even the speed of a text reply. You have a superpower, but it's a superpower that makes you suffer. You see a shadow and your brain builds a whole ghost story around it. This is where the fog of fiction is at its thickest. When your attachment alarm goes off, your brain stops looking for facts. It starts looking for safety. But because it doesn't feel safe, it creates protest behaviors. These are things we do to try and force our partner to show us they still care. Common protest behaviors include calling or texting multiple times when there is no reply, acting cold or busy to see if the other person notices, keeping score of who initiated the last 3 conversations, threatening to leave just to hear the other person beg you to stay, analyzing a 3-word text for 2 hours with a group of friends. These behaviors are all attempts to find an anchor point, but they usually end up pushing the other person further away. For Sarah, asking, "Are you mad?" was a protest behavior.